Excellent. Thank you, McKenna. And by way of introductions here, my name is John Vinci. I am one of the product owners here at GroundCloud. And with me today, or with us today, is Scott Levine, one of my colleagues, also a product owner. And Scott's going to be doing the majority of the talking and the presenting today. We're going to focus on, for today's session anyway, zero in on time cards, payroll, and route stats, and time permitting, right? We'll see if we have an opportunity to touch on some of the other features as well. But obviously a lot has been rolled out lately, and there's a lot to get into, and recognizing the time constraints, we'll try to do our best here with these first three, which have, I think it's safe to say, garnered the most attention and feedback since we launched. So if McKenna, there's nothing else from a introduction and kickoff standpoint, I think we'll turn it over to Scott, and he can take it away with time cards.
All right, yeah, I have nothing to add, so you can take it away, Scott.
Great. All right, guys. Well, to give you a little bit about myself, I'm a contractor as well. Been in the business since 2014 with my family. I started full-time in 2018. We grew from 18 routes to, I think our biggest dispatch during peak was 50 routes on our Wednesday through Friday, busiest days of the week. So I've seen almost everything. I'm actually a customer of GroundCloud ever since 2018, customer 424 when I last looked it up. So I've been with us as we've grown as a customer, and have started in March of this year. So excited to bring some experience from, I think someone is not muted right now. But that's just a little bit background on me. We're gonna jump into time cards, then we'll go to payroll, and then the route stats section of it. Gonna breeze through them pretty quickly to allow the most time for Q&A. So if I don't cover something that you were curious about, please drop it in the chat and we will be sure to address it at the end. So time cards was a big kind of feature enhancement, because we're trying to make sure everyone can really get compliant through the issues that FedEx was having with the under 10,000, tracking everybody's hours. It was a huge pain point for a lot of people. So we want to make sure we become closer to the industry standard that you see through other software companies, and how you record, edit, and then approve time cards. So something that we've heard some feedback on is the customers kind of having a little bit of confusion, which is understandable when we try to roll something out that's so brand new. But to go through the time cards section, if you look here, you can select any date range that you want. So if we were going to do last pay period based on the FedEx schedule, you can go through your calendar, come in, you'll see different statuses for your employees, go through, see the different days. You can filter out which drivers you want to look at, and you can see the different statuses. So if you would click on one, and then you're able to come in here and edit it if they forgot to clock out, if they clocked in too late, different things like that. And in order to make sure we're following the industry standard, we require an approval for this. And the feedback that I touched on a little bit earlier was most people said that they were used to going into their driver profile and comparing their different days of the week of, okay, I see the pattern of he usually comes in at this time, he logged in super early this day, so he was probably at home not actually working, or he logged in really late because there might have been bad service. So that's an enhancement that we're rolling out, but that does not mean you can approve your time card from the driver's profile. You're just able to edit the time card and get the concise look at it. So if we go in, find one that I was looking at, I think Jeff Ewell popped up. So try this one. The pros and cons of having the Acme account. You have to figure out which ones were being used. Yeah, so if you come in here, you'll be able to edit their time card being released very shortly to bring back kind of the legacy feature that most people were used to. And then if you're able to see all the time cards are looking correctly, they're able to do an approve all for the ones showing within this page. So we try to make it easier for everybody of, we don't want you to have to go through and approve them time card by time card by time card. But that's the gist of time cards, how it works, and why we set it up that way. Again, if I didn't cover something, please drop it in the chat and we'll address it at the end. But coming into payroll,
Scott, there are a couple of things.
Yep.
There are a couple things I want to point out that we already have in the works here, given feedback as far as time cards go. So that what you were just showing from an approve all standpoint, you'll note that as Scott was going there, he was able to scroll up and down the table there. And so if you didn't know it, there would be some time cards hidden, right? Hidden from view. Those actually currently get approved when you do approve all, to make sure that you're not surprised by anything. This table is going to be restricted to a certain number on each page, and so then the approval all will just be for what you can visibly see. And then down in the time card details section at the bottom here, the buttons that are currently there, the approve and discard, those are actively being worked on to provide you the ability to save changes, save and approve changes, and then not too far away as well is unapprove and edit. That has been one of our biggest pieces of feedback, is that needing the ability to go back and even adjust and approve time cards. So keep an eye out for those updates coming shortly. Hopefully that will those will go a long way in addressing a lot of the early feedback we've received.
Great points, John. Thank you for clarifying those. As we move on into the payroll automation, there's some different tabs you have to go through in order to set it up. It's more so of a one-time thing. So you'll see here, beneath time cards, we have payroll automation and overtime configurations. What you're going to want to do first for step one is overtime configurations. You can see we have some test ones that are literally just tests. They're throwing them in there. Yours is probably going to look a lot cleaner because you're going to know the laws in your areas. But as we go into create, you'll see that it's completely blank because we aren't able to tell you your overtime rules. They're different in every single state. It's something that's almost impossible for us to track. You could be in 2 terminals in 2 different states. Therefore, you might name this Texas versus California versus Wisconsin. So you're able to do this. And then after you make your overtime rules, set the thresholds, what you'll do is go into your drivers tab, wait for it to load, click on your driver, click compensation, and you are able to select whatever overtime configuration fits their needs. So if this driver was in a certain state, if you're in multiple states, it's very easy to go in and set that. And then right now we have 3 payment types. Before the chat gets blown up, we have heard a lot of feedback about various payment types, and this is something we're actively tracking. We're making note of all of them and scoping them and putting them in our roadmap. We knew that this would be the most popular one to add to because there are so many different ways people pay. There's by stop, there's by package, there's day rates, which is going to be one of the first ones that's rolled out here shortly. And there's different thresholds. It's endless. I could go on and on, but these are the 3 current ones. We have hourly pay with overtime. We have hourly or stops. So what happens is you set your stop rate and you give them an hourly rate. So they're going to get the greater of the 2. That way you're always going to be in compliance of, they're not going to dip below what their base rate was told to them and is in writing in their driver profile. They might make more per hour based upon their stop rates, but they can never go below what you told them they would be getting paid. So it's going to help with any type of payroll audit or compliance issues. And then we have the stop threshold. So anything above a certain stop count, you're able to say, if they do over 150, I'm going to give them X amount per completed stop. So those are the current ones. And then when you go down into payroll automation, after you set that up for all of your drivers, which, like I said, one-time thing, you can customize it based upon your drivers. So whenever we roll out something that's based upon a package rate, you could assign that to your bulk route driver, and you can assign an hourly to your AVP drivers. You can assign hourly or stops to a regular route. So it's very customizable to make sure all your drivers are being incentivized and compensated appropriately. But then when we jump into the payroll automation section, you select the start of week. So I know for a lot of us, we base it upon the FedEx schedule, just because it's easiest of how we get paid, and then therefore paying the drivers, especially if you're doing it by stops. You come in here. If I wanted to look at the 3rd through the 9th, I'll do that, hit apply, recalculates it. Again, since this is a demo account, we're not going to see hours for a lot of these drivers or stops, but once that is completed, we download the CSV file, which is just the same as Excel sheets. And it will spit out all of your calculations for you. To make sure this is very clear, this is not a payroll report. It's the payroll automation, which means it's essentially a big calculator, in the sense we are doing all the calculations for you. And what that means is when you download this, you are able to select columns in a lot of other software platforms like AVP that's doing your payroll for you. So it's going to go through and read, okay, this is the compensation. Whenever this is uploaded, it's going to input it. We've had a lot of feedback about putting in different structures for bonuses, deductions, things like that. We hear it, but at this point in the game with the payroll, that is more of doing the payroll processing than it is doing a payroll report. It is something we are actively working on and working on that integration. So when that time arises, it will be something that we look into that will factor in discretionary bonuses, paid time off, sick pay, and there's one that I'm forgetting, safety bonuses and things like that. We've had a lot of feedback. It's just, that's not necessarily what this report is aiming for. If it's extremely popular, we listen to all feedback, which for a plug, if anybody wants to write it down, the best place for us to track and document it and then implement it into our planning is feedback@groundcloud.com. We get automated emails from it, goes into our inboxes, and then we track in different spreadsheets and CRM platforms. So if it becomes something that we need to add to this, obviously we want to serve our customers best that we can. It's just the scope of it that's more of the processing rather than the calculation aspect of it. John, is there anything to add before I jump into the route stats section?
Nope, you covered that one pretty well.
Told you it's a passion project of mine. So if anybody was in Vegas, you might have seen me presenting on this one. I am going to do my absolute best to fly through this while still giving you the best representation of it. Typically, if I do a demonstration, it takes an hour, but we don't have that much time. So I'm going to hit all of the kind of big points behind it with the summary of the dashboards, and then hopefully it leaves enough time to go over some questions about anything that we went over earlier or focus on route stats itself. So in order to start using route stats, you're going to have to supply some documents at this point, which we will be integrating GroundCloud data, hopefully sooner than later. It's tricky to map everything correctly to drivers and routes, but it's something we're working on currently, diligently, and it's going to make the product even better. But in order to get documents into it, what you're going to do is go into your My Biz account, you're going to select your settlement sheet that's on the home page. It's also referred to as the charge statement. You're going to download the PDF version. You're going to then go into the DSW web portal, click on weekly service worksheet at the top. Make sure the same week ending date is the matching your settlement sheet. Download the Excel version of that. Once you've downloaded those, you come in, click upload file, you choose file. Your very first time, you need to upload the PDF first, hit submit. The next time you're able to do the Excel, submit. After your initial upload, you can then do a mass upload and mixing the sheet. So you could put in 20 PDFs and 20 Excel sheets, hit submit. The very first time we need to reference things on your charge statement, map it to your GroundCloud account so it's associated correctly. And then going forward, since we have all of it mapped correctly and it's associated, you can put any historical data that you want as long as you were still an ISP. So for my family's company, we were able to go back to, I think, August of 2019. I have data in my account, but before that, it's when we still had the PSAs and we were paid on a per route basis instead of what the company did as a whole. So the parser that reads all of the PDFs is only set up for the ISP version of the settlement sheet. After you've uploaded, there's a refresh rate right now that we're constantly working on getting lower and lower. It used to run every 15 minutes and then we'd read the database. We're working on getting it down to 5. And then after that, we're working on getting it to refresh on everybody's individual upload. That's the end goal. I don't have a timetable for that, so don't hold me to the fire, but that's our roadmap of our goals for it. But if you guys had started using it even a month ago, you should be seeing that the refresh is much, much quicker than it was, and this has just been getting better. So once it's uploaded, you're able to make sure all of your files were uploaded. So with this being a demo account, we haven't updated it in a while. Probably should now that we're doing these demos. You can see here the last date is July 8th. So I know now I need to go back in and upload August and September. I'm able to then go down and see, all right, I have route data for these days, stops, packages, and miles. The reason miles is here is if I keep scrolling back, actually, what I need to do is change the date range because the default is for 120 days. When you see this updated after I clicked on this year, if I keep scrolling, the various accounts to give you the best representation of route stats, the various accounts did not have miles data starting in February. The issue here, which is why it's so important for us to get the GroundCloud data in, after 6 weeks, FedEx purges the miles data from the WSWs. So if you were to download your WSWs today, you will not get miles data if it was longer than 6 weeks ago, which is unfortunate, but you're still able to upload all of your settlement sheets or charge statements, and you'll have all your financial data. You just won't see the metrics that have miles to it. So like miles per route is the #1 thing that people typically think of. To speed up a little bit to show you how to make sure your data is inputted, overview page. I've always described this as, this is how you're going to explain what you do to your friends, family. If you're at an expo, this is how you're going to tell people, well, this is how many routes I dispatch, average routes, average amount of stops my company gets, average amount of stops that my trucks do. It's a really good representation of just what you do. You're able to, and then I'll touch on this, not mention it much going forward. You're able to segment the different entities that you run. If you have more than one, if you're in more than one terminal, you can filter it out. Or if you want to look at a specific driver on this page, you can as well. And then you can just take that away and get back to everything else. These filters function the same throughout all of the dashboards. So there's really good continuity between it. Not a big learning curve. They interact almost the same on every single page. Comparison is my favorite, my brainchild. You can do anything that you can think of with this one. So on the left-hand side, if you wanted to compare April and May to June and July, well, to July 8th, because that's where my data ended, you're able to do that. If you uploaded data for the past 3 years, you could compare peak of 2020 to peak to 2021. If you wanted to plan for your upcoming peak, you could look at, say, September, October versus November, December, and see what your growth rate was. So then this coming year, you could look at September and October and make a projection based upon the percentage of growth of how many routes do I need to add, or do I need to add any, based upon what the volume was before peak last year. Manager to manager. If somebody was working last week, he's on vacation, you want to see how the person stepped in and handled it, you could do the left and right comparison of last week to 2 weeks ago. It is the only limitation to it is what your mind can think of. And throughout the dashboard, everything is side by side for you to be able to compare very easily. We have a bunch of various charts. So we have revenue data per day of the week. We have stop mix, package mix. The revenue is the average revenue per that day and the average revenue per route. And then dispatch is how many routes, how many stops are going into your business, packages, total miles, route averages. And then within these, you can look at specific metrics. And throughout the dashboard, if you see this chart, you're able to drill into these averages and see all of the dates that went into generating these numbers. So if you click on it, click this blue arrow to see more of the dates, you can see all of those Saturdays that generated that average, and then you can get back to it. So all of these allow you to look at your business in an easy to way view that you've probably discussed before, but not an easy way to quantify it. And then all of these are based upon each other, but break down the views so it's simpler to view for you. So if I want to look at March, all I did was click on March. You can see it's the same charts, but now it's a bigger screen, easier to look at. You can really hone in on whatever trend you want to look at for that day of the week. You can, same thing with the filters. You can look at a specific business, driver, volume analysis. So very similar to all the other ones of breaking it down per day of the week so you can help make your route plan. But now we show you the volume mix by stop and by package. And then you can correlate that to how it affects your route averages for those days of the week. This one's a really good one. It's going to help you identify what day of the week am I not getting enough work out of my drivers. So these gauges show you this is the average amount of time drivers are on the road. And if you're scheduling for a 5-day work week to where they're supposed to be working as a shift, 8 hours a day, but they're only on the road for 5. And then you look at your payroll report and you see that they're working like 30 to 35 hours. You know, you should probably jump up their stop count so you get more work out of them, decrease the number of routes, and then therefore decrease your payroll, decrease your maintenance, decrease your fuel, and increase your revenue per route. So that's where the major cost savings come in. And this is one of the best dashboards to see it, whereas you can still get it in a lot of other dashboards and drill into the data. This one on a service level, not needing to interact very much, can jump out to you very easily. We have 3 different team ones. We have team is just essentially all of your employees. We have the efficiency, the financial, and the workload. Efficiency, we're mapping their stops per hour versus their stops per mile, which is their density. So how close are their stops together? So if I wanted to look at who is my fastest driver, how dense are their stops? So how close together are they versus what about my quote unquote least efficient, but we all know there's reasons for it. These could be managers. They could be on rural routes. So we're just letting you identify the drivers. We're not trying to tell you that this person's terrible because you know your drivers better than I do. There could be a very good reason for it. And then if you want to analyze in between, you don't necessarily have to use this filter. You can click and drag just like I did. Take that filter off and you're back at it. So you can piece it all together however you want. And then these will update however you filter it out, which all of these charts are set up the same. So Same thing here. Go back to March. So I can get some data in there. I want to filter it out. Same thing. Updates accordingly. And I left these notes on all the dashboards because same thing. I'm not going to be here to tell you that this person is losing you money, because it might be a manager that saves you a lot of time and effort, and they had to run some stops this week. So they popped up and it looks like they don't generate very much revenue per route, but that's why it's a good thing. You can filter that out and start looking at your data in a different perspective. And then same thing for workload. We map the average hours on road, the average stops per route, and then we made sure to include packages per route, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this person isn't getting enough work in the day if they're only doing 19 and a half stops per route when they're doing almost 1,000 packages. So again, we're never going to tell you that, hey, this person, you need to get more stops in their truck, because I was dumb and left out another metric. We just want you to be able to see all of your metrics and help analyze your business in the way that you know your business better than I do. So same thing here. If it was just going by stops, they're literally doing 1,000 packages every time they go out. They're working 8 hours a day. If we were trying to show you the stops per hour, they're going to be super low. 34 stops in 8 hours. It looks like they're super inefficient, but in reality, they're saving a bunch of room in all the trucks. They're probably doing pickups. Like I said, however you piece together your company and structured it, there's probably a reason for it. And there's something that the numbers can't tell me. So we will not be saying this person's terrible, change how they operate. And then driver profile is very similar, but we just cleaned it up, made it a little bit more obvious for some of the metrics. Go in, pick a single driver, and you can see how they affect your business. And then the opportunities one is also there to help you see, okay, where can I make some improvements? So again, we're not going to say on Saturdays, you have to change this. On Sundays, you have to change this, because we don't know everything that goes into that specific day. But we can help draw attention to it to help you think of it in a different manner. So if I want to look at, we'll do one of the businesses. It looks like Sunday's one of the least profitable, and it's not on the road as long as compared to the other ones. So if we're trying to aim for 7.5 hours on road time, it looks like we're a little bit low of that. How does that affect our routes per day? How does it affect stops, packages, and miles per day? So I selected the last 6 months. If I come down here, select the last 6 months, put in the correct correlating day, and if I have a goal of 8, it's going to show me what would happen if I was able to get my on-road hours up to 8. Well, it looks like I could eliminate a route, increase my revenue per route, and these are the stops, packaging, and miles per route. And the last thing with route stats is we clearly hone on revenue per route, but we know this tool has a lot of purposes for your managers as well. In the route stats ops page, we keep every single dashboard the exact same minus any revenue data. So on every single dashboard, we strip the revenue data out. There's absolutely no way it's going to be visible. It's not even a part of the platform on this page. So if you want to look at it with your manager looking over your shoulder, you can do that, and you will be able to navigate the page just as easily as before, because there's no learning curve. It's the same exact charts minus the revenue data that you were used to looking at. And to do that, you just want to go into your fleet managers. We'll select me, and you'll click edit and update their personnel role. So if you allow them to see the financial data, you'll give them the managers. If you don't want them to see it, do not check this one, and you can give them strictly the operations managers, then they will only see this tab on their login portal. I think that is record timing for how fast I went into route stats. I promise I'm not looking away. I'm just checking to see any of the questions. Before I get into that, John or McKenna, were there anything that I forgot? Any glaring details?
No, I don't think so. You know, given the time we have here in the forum, you know, I think the mission accomplished from a high level overview, and we can certainly get into, you know, some more of the details via some of the questions that are coming in here. So I think we can make that transition now.
Cool. I'm glancing through what McKenna is posting for me. Some of these are super quick, so I'll answer them. About staying on the screen for the 15 minutes. You do not have to stay on the screen. Whenever you upload it, you can exit out, come back, do whatever you need to do. Any featured route stats allows categories, routes for averages and different route types. So currently FedEx doesn't feed us, or let me read that out loud a little bit better for you. The question was, could you add a feature to route stats that will allow us to categorize routes and drivers for averages in different route types? I'd specifically like to see my averages with and without bulk stops and managers included and by area. So that is something that's on our roadmap. I actually have some dashboards that are built out for analyzing your routes. So when this gets released, what it's going to look like is we have route efficiency, route financial, and route workload. So it's going to be these same metrics, but we're basing it off of your routes instead of your drivers. The issue to do the route type is, issue is a strong word. It's a roadmap item for us due to a lot of reasons, both like the one mentioned, bulk, the upcoming AVP, and if someone has like a large package route, FedEx doesn't give us the data that is in your DRO plan. So we aren't able to automatically recognize which you set up as your bulk route or anything like that. But to go along with that, we will be making updates to the driver profile to include AVV if you have line haul and regular PNV. So along with these filters, whenever we make updates to things like that, that will help parse any data. So I might delete this section that has the total drivers because it's down here. I might be able to add a driver type. So that is something we have documented, and when we're able to implement it, it will be implemented in route stats as well. Can we do time and a half for Sunday pay under overtime configurations? So we don't have it currently set up for a specific day to be as time and a half. I know there's various pay models for Sundays that contractors do to incentivize getting their drivers to work that Sunday. Everyone obviously loves some NFL football, or they want to go to church, and it can be difficult staffing. So this is something we can add to our roadmap item list. We've gotten some feedback on other ones, but currently it would not suffice for your specific Sunday instance. We would have to add in some logic to say on these specific days, but we'll get it documented into our roadmap items and prioritize it accordingly. How do you handle per day employees with the automation? That one's going to be coming up soon, I think, in the day rate, if that's answering correctly. So essentially what we'll do for the payroll, the exact ones that are there now between hourly, the greater of hourly and stops, and hourly and threshold, we'll duplicate those, but now it will be day rate greater than stops or the day rate, and then day rate and threshold. So I think that answers the question about how we would be handling per day employees.
And I can address one of these here, Scott, while you look at some of the others. So the question, admittingly not really related to Pro, but is there any way to not allow a driver to access at home? I assume what you're going for there is, keeping them from being able to clock in or log in from home. And we do actually have a new feature that's being beta tested right now that we're referring to as driver clock in restrictions that will, if the customer has the setting enabled, will not allow drivers to start work, that is clock in, until they're within the geofence of the terminal. So that is, like I said, it's in beta test and should be available for everyone very shortly.
So this next one about the payroll, it stated, assuming daily pay rates, will the checks still show hours worked, i.e. you earned 150 a day, you worked 40 hours this week, allowing both us and our drivers to track hours worked. So right now it's just payroll automation. We're not pumping out your checks, but whenever you download that report, if I can go back to the one that I downloaded, got to move that. One second, let me make sure my screen is sharing properly. I don't think it populated last time I pulled it up. Are you guys able to see this? John, are you able to see it?
Yep.
Okay, so to answer that, we will be adding a column for day rate. So whether it puts the, say, $150 here, or it shows the day rate and then the count of days, or just puts one, we add a column showing how many total days. I'm haven't been the one developing that. I just talked to the developers, so I can't confirm what the final version would look like. But every time they log into the iPad and then you're approving their time card, which means you're approving that they worked for that day, whether you're doing a day rate or you're doing the hours, I would still recommend tracking their hours properly, because it's going to help with any type of payroll audit by FedEx. And you can show that if they back calculate it, if they're in the under 10,000 pounds, they're still meeting their overtime threshold. But we would still be showing you their total hours worked, even though they are on a day rate. What you display on your check, it would be up to you at this point. When we start doing payroll processing, that's something that I would be recommending to our team that we need to make sure we show, but maybe it's a setting that you would click to say you want to show it. I don't know if we would necessarily default to it. That's something that we would really be honing in on the details once we get to that point. A follow-up question to route stats: does FedEx provide the data that would allow you to add a work area filter? The way the work area filter would work currently is your WSW does show the work area number and the work area name. And I will be completely candid with why the route dashboards were not released. I was hoping it was not a huge request at this time, because there is a pain point in doing things by route, and that is the re-engineering of the docs. And that is how routes are kind of historically categorized and stored. So whenever they change the route number, wherever they put it on the dock, if I was to make a dashboard to show you work area 301, it has this stock count, it has this package count, it was ran by this driver, and it works for this many hours. If they change the geographic area that 301 is now running, I'm presenting you bad data because through a certain week period, it's going to be blended and it's not really the same route. What is supposed to happen is if they change the work area number, they are not supposed to be changing the work area name. So when that is released in its current state, it will be by the work area name. For a lot of people, it is called, say, GroundCloud 1, GroundCloud 2, GroundCloud 3, and then it's just the work area number just changes. Therefore, if you go by the work area name, you will probably have a better idea of the geographic area and the type of route that it is. So the filter would also be by the name as well, not by the type of route. What I hope to do to make it even better, which is why I did not release those in the initial release of route stats, is I'm hoping we can get to a point where within GroundCloud, we take in all of the data from FedEx, the name, the number, but we can create a standardization of you named this work area, say, off of its geographic location. So me personally, I was able to convince my terminal, I want to name this off of this piece of town. So my company's in a college town. So I named one of them downtown campus, and then it's actually Morgantown, West Virginia University. We have split campuses, downtown campus, and then the Evansdale campus. So the two trucks that service those areas are named Evansdale and downtown in the work area master table in FedEx. So whenever they change the number, it doesn't matter. I get to look at my routes exactly how I want to look at them and understand the geographic area. So if we're able to help you implement a record keeping system like that within GroundCloud and not have to worry about FedEx, that is my ultimate goal, because within your DRO plan, you have a specific size truck you're going to send in every single area. And that's going to then correlate to what you're showing in your route stats. And you can better analyze, okay, when this driver runs this route, this is how they compare to when this driver runs this route. So I hope that answers that question. I only see two other questions that McKenna has sent me that we can glance over really quickly. One of them, what is the use of the mobile assets page? And that is a good question. I come up to it. Do you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, Scott, I can explain a bit there. So mobile asset tracking is intended to allow you to manage and keep track of your mobile devices, tablets, not personal phones, but any of the tablets that you have enrolled in GroundCloud's mobile device management platform. So that's the key there. If you're seeing the mobile assets page, but there's no data in it, it's likely the case that your devices aren't enrolled in the GroundCloud MDM. But if they were in the MDM, GroundCloud MDM, what you would see is right now, admittedly, a very basic list of all of your devices, and including serial number, app version, OS version. And right now we're tracking the last person to log into that device. And so it's very basic functionality at the moment to, be able to, have an inventory of your devices. We do have, like everything else, a roadmap in place for this as well, where we intend to, build out the feature, build out the functionality. During our beta test on this, one of the popular requests was, be able to show, on a map where the device is located. So we will continue to enhance this as we go. But again, the key here is that you need to be on GroundCloud's MDM platform. From an iOS standpoint, you need to be running iOS version 1.4.13, build 909 or later. So that's a mouthful, but know that there's a minimum iOS version that's required. We're actually stuck right now on being able to get Android devices to show up on the tracking list, as we've got some technical conflict between Android and our MDM that we're working through. But the intent is to be able to have both iOS and Android devices represented on this list. So in the long run, it's intended to be able to allow you to make sure that you know which devices you have, you know, who's using them, eventually where they are, that sort of functionality.
A follow-up question to route stats was, any plans to add service score to route stats? That's something that I'll add to the roadmap. I might give away a little too much of some stuff on the roadmap. There's a lot of things that I have in either built or partly built in the dashboards that we're showing. So if you notice, all of these really hone on the day of the week. And that's because the first round of route stats, which if you're at the expo, you've probably heard me say this, I barely view this as stage one. It's really like version 0.5 instead of version 1. There's a lot of things that we can do with this and plan to do. So how this is day of the week, that is because we're trying to help you identify in your route plan for the specific days, where can I save money on this day and change this route plan? So something we're going to implement is some different trend dashboards to say, instead of this chart showing you the day of the week, we will have a version of it showing you month to month in a much easier format. So it would be, say, the last 6 months that populate right away. Another version of it could be a weekly trend of, here's your past 10 weeks and how it's been trending, instead of trying to see the trends for a specific day of the week and how those averages per day went in. So then come back to any plans to add the service scores. That is something that we would look into, probably enhancements around a team dashboard, to where it could be team service scores versus impact packages or something. Or it could be added into the driver profile, adding safety scores into route stats, adding, once we get some of the other payroll stuff integrated, of how everyone's integrating or using their payroll, whether it's day rate, we can start showing you how profitable a driver is, not just how much revenue they're generating. So even if they're a high revenue generator, are they spending too much time on the road because they're too inefficient and it doesn't actually equate to a profitable driver? So there is a laundry list of things that I want to implement that I know you guys want me to implement as well. So I will definitely look into the service scores and where that would fit best in whether the existing dashboards or a new dashboard that will be created and implemented. I do see the question about going over the driver scheduling. I'm not sure if we'll have all of the time to necessarily dive into it. These were kind of the big questions that we had been getting between time cards, payroll, and route stats. So this one's definitely themed around that. I can touch on it if I don't see any other questions, but
I
it
think
can
Scott,
take
a
a little bit of time.
Yeah, with our intentions here, and I should have prefaced everything up front with this, is one, we certainly appreciate everyone being here, and two, we should have said maybe take it easy on us. This is the first one we're doing, so we're learning as we go here. I'm very happy to have the opportunity and have you all with us for this first time. And we knew coming in that we wouldn't really be able to touch on everything that's been released since the show. So we'll definitely be getting into scheduling. In fact, I'm sure we've got another one of these that's going to be coming up next week, if not the same time, same day and time, pretty close to it. And we'll definitely be covering scheduling, as well as some of the other features as well. So, and McKenna, keep me honest here, I think ultimately what we'll be doing here is walking away with some learnings and with some insight into, what continues to be the most popular topics for you all, and structuring, the next webinar around those themes. So just because we didn't get to scheduling today doesn't mean we won't cover it. We'll definitely have it covered in a future session.
McKenna, how much time left do we have from what was scheduled? Is there any other questions that I'm missing here from your messages? I want to make sure I help them in any way possible. Do they want to see more in depth of the payroll, anything in route stats? Because I know I breezed through some of those fairly quickly to make sure we still had enough time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are all the questions that I got, but again, to everybody, you can always email me if you have any follow-up questions on anything, and I can get you those answers. But yeah, I think those were all of the questions that we had for today. Let's see. Dan might have sent me some. Hold on just a second.
Dan doesn't count. He's got to get better technology and connection before he can participate.
Okay, let's see. Oh, someone asked, what is the difference between route stats and route stats ops?
Route stats will have financial data like this, your average revenue. So like in this version, if we're looking at day of week operation analysis, this is the average revenue generated on these days of the week. If I clicked on a Sunday, that is the revenue that was generated for each of those days. Revenue per route is how much revenue each truck is generating. It's going out. You can see that for each day of the week. If I go to route stats ops, click on day of week operation analysis, make sure I have data showing since we haven't updated that, you will see there is no revenue. So ops is for any of your managers that you want to give access to this tool because it can still help them in a lot of ways. Specifically on this page, you're able to see the different averages right at a glance. They can go in and see the trends. So FedEx tries to tell you in your DRO plan that you're going to get how many packages on what days. So I know some people, based off these numbers, DRO might be telling them 6,000 stops and 20,000 packages. But if we want to look at the real trend of what they were giving you, you can come in here, look at it, see what actually went into those days and how many stops, how many routes you used, and total packages, total miles. So they're still able to use this tool without the financial data if their role does not permit them seeing it.
Okay.
And same thing for all the other ones, comparison, if they're doing the plan that way. We see here on the ops, we just have operation data and route average comparison data. But if I look at the route stats one, it will have the revenue one right above that. So ops means it's your operations, that's it. Route stats, it gives you the revenue as well.
Okay, and then on route stats, when it says average on-road hours, what is that? Is that like from the first stop or when they clock in? Or when does that time start?
When we integrate GroundCloud data, it will be the drive time. So whenever the truck is moving. I personally have a laundry list of how I want to integrate different hours. So we'll be doing shift time and drive time. But currently it comes from the WSW. So it is the on-road hours from the WSW column because there's the on-duty and then the on-road hours. So it's the on-road hour column.
Okay. Let's see. There's some other questions here. Someone asked, payroll stops completed. Is this stop count pulled from GroundCloud drivers completing stops or pulled data from actual stops completed in the scanner?
So GroundCloud pulls the data from the scanner with the AMU. If you have that set up, It is the scanner data that's coming in. If you do not have AMU set up, we are taking the GroundCloud app data from, if you were manually uploading the Excel sheet and then they are clicking delivered. So we're taking the data that we are either receiving and then comparing it to if both of them match. The current setup is whichever one says delivered was counting as a total stop. So we've heard feedback. That meant if a driver hit 07 or 03 on a package or 02, whatever the code was, we were getting that data, recognizing it was attempted. But if the driver had clicked delivered in the GroundCloud app, we were counting it as delivered. We see the bug, the issue, you're not getting paid for it, so therefore you're not paying the driver. So that is something we're actively changing and working on. That is only when there is a delivered status. It does not solve for if you're not set up in AMU to where we don't have your FedEx scanner data. So I highly recommend you setting that up. If you're unsure how to set that up, McKenna, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there's probably an article under help that will get you there, or you can call support and they'll be able to walk you through it.
Yes, that is true. Absolutely. The knowledge base is a great resource for things like that. Let's see if we have any other questions. Okay. Not sure what this means, but someone said, are you adding a manager's punch in option on the manager's portal? And I don't know if that's okay.
That's referring to kind of the scheduler, but also being able to clock in as a manager and track their time that way. I would have to look in. So there is a way that a manager can log in and track their hours. I have not tested it out personally, so that would be something interesting for me to do after we hang up. But what you can do without having them grab an iPad is if they go on their phone or any device, if they type in groundcloud.io, and instead of using their manager login, if they use their driver login, what's going to populate is it's just going to say start. There's going to be a button, and I forget what's at the top. Forgive me, but it will have a start button that they can click, and it's going to start their clock in. And then at the end of their shift, they can go back in and click stop, and it's going to record their time. That does not have any restrictions of location that we're working on for the driver app, but it is a workaround currently of how you can get them to do a login. That is also a way you can get any helpers or driver assistants or jumpers to log in as well, where they don't have to have an iPad to log in or use the driver app. Because I know that a jumper might be like, this asked for my location. I don't want you tracking where I am. So that would be a hesitancy, but there is a workaround where they can just use a web browser login. And then again, to approve their time card, if they are being picked up by the driver en route, you could always change their time card to match when the driver got there. So if they tried to get one over on you and clock in an hour early, they're able to go in and change that and discipline them accordingly, or just not even worry about it and change it to when the driver got there.
And just to answer the question directly there, the ability to have a manager punch in, punch out from IO is on our roadmap, but is not something that we're currently actively working on. So in the meantime, there are the options that Scott just described.
All right, I think that covers all the questions, but if anyone has any follow-up questions or I missed something, definitely feel free to either email me directly or you can call into support and we'll get you your answers.
Well, I want to thank everybody for your time. I hope I answered a lot of your questions and showed you the workflows of how to use the various tools. John or Dan, if you have anything else to add, I think we might have got a lot of it covered.
Yep, just echo the appreciation. Thank you all, first of all, for being great GroundCloud customers and being so interested in, you know, the new features and functionality, and for your eagerness to learn, you know, more about them. Like I said, this is, you know, the first time we're doing this, so definitely a lot to learn from it. In addition to the questions that you have, you know, if you got suggestions for how to improve these sessions as well, would definitely be open to hearing that, because we want to make sure that we're making these, you know, as valuable as we can for you. So with that, though, we'll wrap it up for today and look ahead to the next time we get together like this. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day, guys.